Good day, Solomon Star viewers. Today we are joined by the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, Comrade Julius Malema. Mr. Malema, thanks a million for taking time off from your extremely hectic schedule to be with us today.
Thank you.
I had the honor of working with you from a distance from the ANC structures then. And I must say we are very impressed at the work that you are doing as a party.
Yes.
We believe that the country needs a kind of robust debates and engagements to provide a better future for the country. But looking at the election results over the years, we noted that in 2014, you surprised everybody as a very new party, as a new kid on the block at that time, and got 6.4% of the vote, 6.5 therearound. And then in 2016, you increased that vote, although marginally so, but it was an increase in terms of numbers. It speaks volumes. How do you see your party faring in the upcoming elections?
Well, we think that the EFF is going to do very well. We are now existing in almost all corners of the country. We are in the rural areas. We are in all municipalities. We struggled with Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Northern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. And we can't say the same today. The type of work which the fighters have put on the ground is so overwhelming. And you get the overwhelming responses in the most remote rural areas of our country. And what has been shocking now, it is the response of the elderly people. Because 2014, 2016, consistently we've been attracting the youth vote. And we've been struggling with the elderly people. Now the elderly people are responding. We're still struggling with the female vote. We are now conducting a research as to what could be the issues. And we've even put up a research team to go and research the issues that females have with the EFF, because the EFF policies, particularly now, the manifesto of the EFF, has very clear and progressive policies when it comes to women, when it comes to LGBTQs in our country, and there's no any other party that comes anywhere closer to the EFF when it comes to those issues.
But what do you attribute it to? You remember a few years ago there was COPE and there was a lot of excitement, and people thought COPE would sustain itself. And if I can talk to the Northern Cape politics, COPE used to be the official opposition. They only have one member now. But EFF somehow managed to sustain themselves and make it through all the difficulties, including finances, because we understand the elections are a very expensive exercise. But what has given you the edge with all these challenges to emerge as you have?
Well, in 2014 we had the message, and COPE in 2009 had political celebrities. You will know that there were former ministers, there was a former deputy president of the country in COPE, all types of celebrities endorsed COPE. But there was no message. There was nothing alternative in their policy to the status quo. So the EFF is presenting a clear alternative to what is existing in all political formations now. And everything else that comes after the EFF, particularly the new formations, they want to mirror themselves with what the EFF is exactly doing, which is a clear confirmation that the EFF had a message. The EFF speaks for the voiceless masses of our people. The EFF has become that robust body of body politics of South Africa, where there is no compliance to the decorum of politics, as it were, in South Africa. But we've become this disruptor, because change by its own nature is disruptive. You can't say you want to renovate your house, but it must still be orderly. Once you say you want changes in this house, it's going to be disruptive. A lot of people are not going to be impressed with that disruption, But after that, what is going to come out of that disruption is going to be something, very significant.
No, thanks for that. And I think reading your manifesto, it's quite loaded, and we really appreciate the amount of detail you've put in there. But due to time constraints, we are hoping for this interview you will share with us what your plans on this whole debate on land is. Our view is that there has been some element of progress, but our own observation is that where people have been given land, you did not have vigorous programs to ensure that people benefit from the land that they do have. In the Northern Cape, we have communities that own both land and water. Mm-hmm. In fact, over the past 20 years, but not a single one of those have managed to ensure that they benefit from the land itself. What would you do differently to firstly ensure that the people who received land, either through distribution or restitution or other means, optimize the value that they can get from their land? And obviously, then secondly, ensuring that the other people who are landless also gain access.
Well, firstly, we want to amend the Constitution, Section 25, to expropriate land without compensation. Because what happened in the past is that people were not given the land. People were given a paper during some ceremony called handover ceremony. And after that, everyone disappeared. When the cameras disappeared, everyone disappeared. Those people remained with the paper and did not know what to do. No one was trained with business management. No one was trained with financial management. No one was taught how to drive a tractor. No one knew who's the manager, who's what. They just said, this is a community land. And then they left them like that. And what was left is communities with a huge piece of land without principles. And they started fighting amongst themselves, claiming this one wants to be a boss, this one wants to be this. I cannot report to this one. Because there was no handover of land, there was a handover of a paper. So the handover of a land is not a ceremony. It is, a rigorous program where people have to be employed to manage that which exists now, if we're to expropriate it, and they must be employed by the state. And the communities which are going to be involved there, certain individuals must be assigned certain responsibilities. And all of us ought to respect that. That this one is a CEO, this one is this one is that. And these are the coffers of this farm. This is how they will be used. A policy will be developed. And if there is non-compliance of such, because the land is owned by the state, we can always take it and give it to people who will use it. So in a situation you are referring to, we have given people a paper. You can't take the land away from them. You can't tell them to leave the projects and bring in people who come and use the land in a very, productive way. So if a state is the owner and you don't meet the state expectations, at any time the state moves in and says, we allocated this land for agricultural purposes, for industrial purposes, for housing purposes, and it's not being used for that purpose. And therefore, we found other people who will use this land, productively to grow our economy and to make sure that we reduce unemployment and poverty in our country. So the inability to go back and intervene is because you've got no say. The people who've got a piece of paper decide what to do with the land. If they don't want to use it, you can't do anything. You either go and buy it from them through a community resolution. Even if you want to do that, all community meetings are disrupted. And there's no properly constituted meeting to want to pass a resolution to hand over this land to this one to manage it or to do any other thing on it. We want the state to be the owner so that it becomes easy to intervene and say, this is the direction we want to take. No one should be saying, no, we're the rightful owners here, we can do as we wish. The state must have the ultimate say.
Oh, I see. So the operational is that the state will be the owner of the land.
The state will be the custodian of the land. And who is the state? We are the state. We, the people, are the state. And then we'll have the government that manages this land of ours on our behalf. So let's talk about, for instance, the traditional leaders. People say Ngonyama Trust is fighting, doesn't want the state to own the land. Traditional leaders are fighting, saying the state wants to take their land. But they forget that Ngonyama Trust, derives its existence out of Act of Parliament. And it is required by the Act of Parliament to account to Parliament about its own activities. Once it derives its existence through the Act of Parliament, it's a state organ. Therefore, Ngonyama Trust is the state organ. That's why the king of the Zulus has got a personal number. He's paid by the state because he is part of the state. All traditional leaders have got personal numbers. They are paid by the state because they are organs of the state. Those are the people's power. Those are organs of people's power. So they are organs of the state. So because they forget that they are organs of the state, when you say the state will be a custodian, hey, what do you mean? You're going to take the land from us. Why would we take the land from the state? It will be managed by U.S. traditional leaders. It will be managed by local government. It will be managed by Department of Land and other institutions that are going to be established, including the ombudsman, where will appeal if we are not happy with this or that decision on the land. We will also expand the land court in South Africa. Is there in our manifesto that our land court will not have less than 10 judges. As we speak now, the land court has got 2, if not 1 judge. Yet the land is a big problem in South Africa. If you launch a court application in relation to the land, it's likely to be heard after 3 years because there are no judges specifically assigned to go and sit on cases of the land, reinstituting the land into the hands of the rightful owners. So we'll have an ombudsman. If you're not happy, you can go to court, and the court will have enough judges to say, but you are wrong to take this land as the state away from these people for these reasons. Or the court will say, yes, the policy requires of you to use the land. If you don't use it, you will lose it, and it will be allocated to other people who will use it effectively and productively.
No, thanks, Mr. Malema. There's another issue linked to this, which I think we tend to be silent about, and the silence leads to insecurity.
Absolutely.
Especially amongst your white commercial farmers. Coincidentally, we had some meetings with a few farmers yesterday, and their view was the EFF is coming with this draconian approach and take away everybody's land. Could you please clarify that specific matter, because it's not the message that we get from you, that you are there to take land from all the commercial farmers and send them. No. That unfortunately is the message. Can you please?
Well, they shouldn't come across as being lazy readers, because the policy is written. I might be speaking emphatically and in a robust way to a point where they get easily sensitive and scared. And if they experience such a situation, you just go into the policy discussions and you look at the policy of the EFF. It outlines that issue very clearly. When the state becomes the custodian of the land, this hotel will remain where it is. The owners of this hotel will remain the owners of this hotel. It's just that the land will not belong to them. So one day they want to demolish this hotel or turn this hotel into a brothel. We'll come here and say, no, you were not allocated this land for that purpose. You continue being a hotel, or else we are taking over our land. And when we take over our land, because this portion is allocated for hotel, we'll get someone who will come and continue with the business of hospitality in this area in a form of a hotel. The same goes to commercial farmers. If you dare disrupt production of food, you will become a threat to food security. So every productive farm must continue to produce, but they must tell us, where is this farm productive? Because they've got hectares and hectares of land and they don't use it. So out of 25 hectares of land, you may find they're using 5 hectares or they're using 20 hectares. there is 5 which is not being used. So they have to tell us, and we'll make our own research, our own investigation, and say, in the whole of 25, it is clear you're using 20. Continue using 20. We need these 5 to give to another commercial farm. So instead of being as a food security threat, will actually add to the production, because there's going to be that 5 hectares which was idling, which is now going to be used for production, to add to that 20 hectares of land. So they get the message very clear. What makes them uncomfortable, and which is a general problem with white people, is that their comfort zone is being tampered with. So to hang around saying you've got 25 hectares of land, even if you don't do anything with it, it boosts your ego, it makes you think you are this powerful person. And when someone says you no longer have 25, you now have 20, that person is tampered with your comfort, even if you're not using a 5%. The general population of white people is also threatened by equality. It's not threatened by war. They know there's not going to be war in South Africa. They know there's not going to be blood on the floor. The word equality is the most insulting word to white people, because majority of them, they grew up knowing all of us. The first black person they saw was a domestic worker inside the house when they were born and opened their eyes. The second one was a gardener. The third one was a security guard at the school where they were taken, if not at the mall or a shop where they were taken. The fourth one was a cashier or a shopkeeper. So all their lives, they've seen black people who are inferior, and now they're being told those inferior people are going to be equal to you. It's a nightmare. It causes them nightmares, and they don't want that. It's not only in South Africa. It's a global phenomenon, and somewhere it has to start, where we start forcing this equality on humanity, so that we appreciate one another. They get this message more clearer than black people, because black people someone must interpret to them. So this white, they don't need interpretation. They hear it clearly. Somehow, somewhere, the meaning of this message, get lost in the interpretation to black people. But white people, they don't need interpretation. They hear the message very clear. They are just refusing to be equal to anyone. When you talk nationalization, they refuse it. But they didn't refuse it during apartheid. They know what nationalization can do. I mean, Afrikaners did nationalization to empower illiterate Afrikaners. That's how companies like Transnet came about. That's how, not Transnet, Railway came about. That's how ISCO came about, ESCOM as well. And Sasol, they benefited from that, especially those who were illiterate. And we are saying we want the same things to empower black people. They say no, nationalization has never worked anyway. But they forgot that nationalization worked in South Africa after the 40s through the introduction of the apartheid government, which was beneficial to the Afrikaners alone. So anything that seeks to empower black people, it's a big problem for them, and they don't want it. Yes, so they understand the message very well. That's why I don't have a nightmare. I was never groomed in politics of killing white people or driving white people to the sea. I'm not a product of one settler, one bullet. I'm a product of a Congress movement that embraced non-racialism throughout. I may not be an embracer of non-racialism. I'm an anti-racist embracer, not non-racialist. Non-racialism means a room full of white and black people, but they do not share the same vision or any mission. They are just tolerating one another. I'm anti-racism. I don't agree with racism at all. So why would, at this age, would I just become a person who hates white people and want to drive them to the sea? The only problem they have with me is I'm not scared of them, like the rest of other people are scared of them. I tell them the things they don't want to hear, and in their private spaces, they confess that, you know what, if we don't work out something, we may find ourselves in trouble. There's going to be an unled revolution in this country, where me and you will be victims because we have committed a class suicide. We're no longer staying in townships. We're no longer amongst the poorest. When Alexander blocks all entrances of Sandton, they are going to find me in Sandton and I won't exit. I won't even go and say to them, don't do it. Because they will say, you can't talk to us. You left us in the township and went to join them there. And you left us suffering. Who are you to come and tell us now not to do what we're doing? So, if we cannot act now, both white and black elite stand to lose everything you have gained since 1994. That's why the black elite itself must be in the forefront to fight for the changing of the status quo. Because when those people rise, they will come for all of us. There will be a day where Range Rover, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and all of that will not be allowed in townships. You're going to find them at the entrance. We don't want these things here. Just go back. You come here to come and show us your fleshy life when we're swimming in a pool of poverty. So before we reach that point, let's resolve it. I can tell you I'm not a prophet. I'm a political analyst. I'm a political scientist. I'm a graduate of political science. I can make an observation and I can tell you these are going to be the results going forward. That's where we're heading to. And there will not be a hero in South Africa like there is no hero now. If these people rise now, Winnie Mandela is gone, Nelson Mandela is gone, Chris Hani is gone, Steve Biko is gone, Sibugwe is gone. There's no one left here who can go to a national television and say, please calm down. We are on top of the situation. So they will come for all of us.
No, thanks, Mr. Malema. I think what you're saying is really thought-provoking, and you get so many quotes of philosophers in the past saying, normal people like ourselves, if you allow things to happen on your watch and you don't intervene, you might find your country having gone to the gutters. And we've got recent examples of the government, and you stood up in parliament and shouted, pay back the money and so forth. And you then ask yourself, how could you allow things to happen for as long as they did when we all saw that the country was going down the drain? But another issue linked to that is the ANC also, you've mentioned Congress, and that's the reason why I'm picking up on it. From the criticism they get, a lot of people are saying most of their policies are quite sound. And we have, in the similar interviews we've had with the provincial leadership, posed one question, and that has to do with the quality of the human capital within government especially. And it gets worse at local government level. You find that there is a visible absence of people who have the wherewithal. You come with very good, let's say come 8th of May, EFF wins the elections. What are you going to do with the people who are in government who are supposed to give meaning and expression to all the good policies that you advance?
Well, firstly, there's no sound policy of the ANC. So let's go to the land, for instance. The ANC policy was until 2016, willing buyer, willing sell. If there was a willing buyer with money and there's no willing seller, you will still not have the land. So there is no sound policy about that. The ANC policy of health, for instance, closes clinics at 4 o'clock. What is progressive about it's not the staff members. It is the policy that says 4 o'clock we are closing the clinic. You should be saying to me, the primary health care policy of the ANC says The clinic must be opened 24 hours. And the inherited apartheid staff members close the clinic at 4 o'clock. There is no policy of the ANC that is progressive. They have declared schools no-fee schools. And then after saying no-fee schools, they give parents all types of lists of demands. I want this type of books. My books must be covered by this type of a cover. I want money of casual day, Friday, and this and that. When you go back there, the money that the school collect from an individual parent, it amounts to school fees or even more than that. Yet the school is declared a no-fee school. There's no progressive policy in there. Because a progressive policy will say, no parent must be asked for money for anything. You require anything, you go to the offices of the Department of Education. If there is no policy at school, come to the Department of Education. Each school must do an annual budget of what you are going to need and all that. The emergencies must be directed. So the ANC just says no fee schools, meaning don't pay a school fees, but any other thing you must pay. If there is an old man hired to maintain the school, there's parents out of desperation in a meeting agree that there must be some money contributed by parents to pay that old man who must maintain the school. So we have no problem with civil servants at all. Look at Gwede goes to Vryburg. He gets a hostile reception in Vryburg because there is a spilling sewer system. Gwede stands there and says, I'm not going to leave until this thing has been fixed. And then Gwede stays there the whole day, half a night. Those people come, they start fighting with that thing, they fix it. It has been like that for more than 5 years. Those people have accepted that this sewer is running along the streets here. There's no one who's doing anything. It's part of our life. The kids play with it. It just takes a government minister to come one day and stand there and say, I'm not going to leave before this thing is fixed. Why didn't the mayor do it? Why didn't the MEC do it? Why didn't the premier do it? Where I come from, the ward councillor is an EFF person. I go there, I find a dumping area in my township, and I say to the councillor, I came to see my grandmother here, and I'll be here for the next 2 hours. Before I leave here, I want to find that place cleaned. Then they call the municipal cars, they clean the place, and all that. You need leadership. There is no policy, there is no leadership. You need leadership. I will never be a mayor who drives on a road that is full of potholes. I mean, there's a place in Northwest, the main road of a municipal office. It's not worth being called a tar road. And I'm like, the mayor drives here every day. The councillors drive here every day. The municipal manager, every day. Why can't they just remove that tar road so that we know that it's a gravel road? It's psychologically taxing to be told you've got a tar road, but it's worse than a gravel road. So there's no leadership. Surely the road was done by some ANC chap who couldn't do a proper job because he had to give them cards. And in the process of giving them cards, there's nothing left to build a proper road. So the ANC leadership is not there. The policy is not there. I went this morning to an area here in Northern Cape to see Jordan door to door. Found a woman who walks on some sticks. Says, I went to a clinic. They said, I'm critical. I need an ambulance. I waited until 4 o'clock. The 4 o'clock, the clinic closed. And then the children had to go and fetch her from the clinic back home. On her way back home, it started raining. And then they couldn't do anything. The clinic closed at 4 o'clock. A scientific proof why the EFF policy is right. Because if that clinic was open 24 hours, she would have waited for ambulance in a safer place, in a clinic. Where is the ANC policy? We don't have clinics. Pregnant women have to travel distances. People with sugar die, and yet sugar is manageable. High blood is manageable. Breast, if discovered much earlier, is manageable, especially the breast cancer. Because these women, once they hear some irritation, they can quickly go into a clinic to check. When they rush to a hospital, they find the long queues. They're like, it's not serious. They go back, because why stand on a long queue on something that is not serious? They keep on saying it's not serious until they become critical. Why? There's no primary health care. What is the ANC policy on primary health care? Cuba, the poorest country compared to South Africa, each street has got a doctor. That doctor, no one goes to the clinic. The doctor conducts home visits. Doc, yesterday I felt something here. Immediately it's inspected and they're like, we can feel some lump, let's admit you. And then they discover there is a breast cancer. They remove it. And then a person lives forever. We need a policy. The narrative that this ANC policy is progressive, the problem is implementation, comes from them. It's like when they were saying there is a good story to tell. When children were dying in the pit toilets, and they said that is a good story to tell. When they were stealing money of toilets in the Eastern Cape, they said there is a good story to tell. When the Guptas were stealing our country and collapsing our country, they said there's a good story to tell. For instance, you are saying, we went to Parliament and challenged the corruption in Parliament. When we started doing that, our children, biological children, could not hear the end of it in their schools. Our parents were being insulted, because we were challenging the rod of the state. The same way we were challenging the land. People were saying they were disruptive, they are disrespectful. How can they treat an elderly person like that? Whether you're old or young, if you're a thief, you're a thief. You have stolen. There's no any other way of saying it. To sugarcoat it is to promote corruption. We must call it with its rightful name for people to understand what we're fighting for. We fought from 2014. We fought, and then they said 2016, people are no longer going to elect these people. They've messed up Parliament. We increased. You say we have increased marginally. We increased to 200,000 votes. We're the only party that increased in 2016. The ANC declined, the DA declined. The same way they are going to do on the 8th of May. They will decline. Even research says that they are all declining. Their favorite Cyril is not helping ANC with anything. Even the ANC cooked recent research puts the ANC at 58%. It's practically impossible to put it beyond 60%, even when you are manipulating figures. So they put it at 58% as a scientific demonstration that even Cyril is not helping them. No one can help them. They want to resurrect Mbeki. He will not help them. He could not help himself. Yet 2/3 majority didn't do anything with it. If they had a way, they will go and resurrect Mandela in Kunu, because they are extremely disparate. There is nothing helping them. We are the only party growing. Why? We are doing the right thing. We are targeting the right people with the right message, and we are fighting every ill in society, be it racism, be it rape, be it domestic violence, gender-based violence, be it corruption, any other thing that our society feel uncomfortable about. They say we must call the EFF. Even at work, people are no longer calling unions. They are like, no, we need EFF here because these whites are tormenting us here.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
I think moving on to the jobs issue and
Yes.
I think the whole GDP issue, you have, and again, you have given quite a fair amount of detail in your manifesto. And I think went as far as saying over a 5-year period, you will increase, you're in a position to take the GDP growth to 10%. And
6 years.
And 6 in the
To
first
10, yeah.
6 in the first 3 years. And then with all the challenges we have, including your financial institutions being hostile, and I think one can say that with authority, what instruments do we have in place to turn that around?
You need to establish first the state-owned bank to deal with the hostility of financial institutions. It doesn't matter what you have. You can have this newspaper, you can have shares in the mines. For you to get an approved loan as a black person is going to take you not less than 30 days. And your white counterpart with less than what you own will get that approved within a week. So the problem is not financial institutions per se, or people being not qualified. It's an institutionalized racism that rejects our people. And if they keep on rejecting you, the GDP will not grow, because the people who control the 10 trillion asset we have in South Africa are the white minorities who do not have confidence in the current government. What do? They don't spend that money. They keep it in the bank. For as long as we do not industrialize, for as long as we don't beneficiate, as long as we don't reinvest the trillions we have in the banks back into the economy of South Africa, you must forget about growing the GDP, you must forget about growing the economy, because the money is not being used. Why? It's racism, pure racism. They do not believe in the current government. It doesn't matter how many reassurances they get. They got reassurances during Mbeki's time. Mbeki supported them, loved them so much. They only grew the economy. That did not translate into reducing poverty, did not translate into creation of jobs, because they were not interested in the industrialization in order to create jobs and reduce poverty and unemployment in South Africa. So the EFF wants to industrialize, and the EFF want to incentivize those that go and industrialize in Khalishiwe and not in town of Kimberley. They must go where people are, so that people walk into the workplaces, back into their houses, the same way white people do. White people during lunch time, they go fetch their kids from school, drop them at home, eat lunch, and go back to work. We can't do that. We grow up without seeing our children. We grow very angry children who grow up on their own without a parental care. We want to destroy that. Let's industrialize where our people stay. Anyone who industrialize there should be able to get discounted water, should be able to get discounted electricity. We need to beneficiate. Here in Kimberley, they came, they mined diamond. The only thing they left is a big hole. What are we going to do with the big hole? They didn't leave the big cutting institution in the whole world. That, you know what, if you want it polished and cut quickly, the only place that can do such is in Kimberley. Let London say that. Let Brazil say that. Let the whole of Europe say that no, we must quickly send it to Kimberley, polish it, cut it. Because the legacy of diamond in Kimberley is the biggest institution of polishing and cutting. That should have been the legacy. So that is not the case. So we want everywhere where a mineral is discovered, let there be a big institution that processes whatever we're producing in that particular area. Why is there no big or the biggest washing plant of chrome in Bakersford in Limpopo? Because in Limpopo, you just need a spade to take out chrome. You don't need a TLB. You don't need just a spade. It's just here. So why is there no build state-owned wash plant, so that any chrome that leaves South Africa is a finished product, and by doing that, you are going to create jobs in Bakersford? Why is there no processing of platinum in Rustenburg and in Mukopane, where there is recently discovered biggest belt of platinum. So we need every platinum, every chrome, every mineral to be accompanied by beneficiation. We've got the nice and beautiful coal in Mpumalanga and everywhere else, including in Lephalale, in Limpopo. You know what they do? They transport the good coal out of South Africa and they leave us with a bad coal. That coal, when they transport it from Mpumalanga into KZN, they use our roads. No extra money is being put on that, on those trucks. We need to tax. We have no problem letting go of a good coal. Let's put heavy money into it so that when it leaves, it doesn't only damage our roads, it can repair those roads that they are damaging. So you need a political will to do that. By putting more tax on that coal, you are creating more jobs and you are growing our economy. We need to deal with illicit financial flows in South Africa. Maybe someone must go and ask Mcebisi Jonas why he refused to be a SARS commissioner. Because I got it on good authority that he said the only way for me to become a commissioner of SARS is only when I'm permitted to go after the mines. And I make sure the mines pay tax here in South Africa because they are the biggest tax avoiders in South Africa. And when I go after the mines, you must know that I'm going after the president. Clearly, I won't finish my term of office. I don't want to destroy myself. Thank you for the job of a commissioner of SARS. There's too much money here. We are the richest country when it comes to minerals, yet we remain poor. Yet our GDP is not growing because there is no leadership. We have succumbed to the Oppenheimer family. We have succumbed to the Rupert family. We have succumbed to the Minel family, the Rothschild family. They are controlling our country. In that group, you cannot avoid Cyril, Trevor, Pravin, Thabo being part of that arrangement. That's why Thabo comes out now to endorse Cyril, because they belong to the same faction. So when we speak white monopoly capital, whites think you are taking them. We're not taking them. These families, the Oppenheimers, are the ones who have finished the minerals of this province. They have not left us with anything. They are the biggest thing here in Northern Cape. They are untouchable. No one speaks about them. No one speaks against them. No one marches against them. If you do that, you will be projected like crazy. I think if they had their way, they would have produced a certificate that I'm a mad person by now, because I'm the only one who challenges them. And they never comment about anything. No, they are milking the country. You can fight there for crumbs. They're never interested in those things. Now the Oppenheimer family have got their own airport right in the OR Tambo, where the VIPs must enter without being processed. The VIPs are the most corrupt people. They're the ones who are involved in trafficking. They're the ones who are involved in drugs. Where would an ordinary person of Khalishiwe get the drugs from? Flying for the first time. These ones who want their own separate entrance, they are the ones who enter South Africa with bags full of money, unaccounted for. And they are the ones that take the diamond, the gold, the minerals of this country out of this country, unaccounted for, tax-free. That's why we can't grow this GDP. We have to confront these families and say to them, it's enough. We have to benefit from the resources of this country.
No, thanks. It's quite insightful. And again, these things, the illicit cash flows, you'll recall not so long ago, Mbeki was part of a study that was conducted
in Africa, yes.
In Africa. But nothing gets done.
No, nothing. He spoke about it. Yes, made a research. You know, there's a big problem, and the global markets and the global monopoly capital benefit out of it. The biggest problem is the disunity of Africa. They've divided it. They've imposed, borders on it, because they know that once divided, it will never be in a position to challenge them. China has got the biggest population, bigger than us. They are in charge of, they've got one president. India, the same big population, one president. We have almost the big population as a continent with 56, if not 54 presidents. What are we doing? It's pure division of Africa so that they can continue to exploit the resources of Africa. The day they are done with these resources, they are going to say Africa must have one currency, Africa must have one president, it must have one government. It doesn't make sense why you've got so many presidents. It's still making sense now because they are benefiting out of it. The division of Africa is the biggest problem. When I say remove the borders, they say no, these Nigerians are going to bring drugs in. But it is not Nigerians who owns the clubs where these drugs are being sold to children of middle class. Yes, I'm not saying Nigerians are not selling drugs. Neither am I saying they do, but they are white people who are selling drugs, who have a free passage into the country with drugs. You don't care about them. We must care about blacks because we suffer from self-hate. We need this continent. My vision is not to be a president of South Africa. My vision is to have one African continent with one mission, with one president, with one currency, with one government, with one dominant language, which will make us to communicate with ease. Because they divided us and then imposed languages on us, made sure that we don't just talk to each other, not only in the continent, even here in South Africa. This interview, we should be conducting it in our own, one of the indigenous languages that is common and well spoken by everyone. Whites, coloreds, Indians, Africans should be knowing that language. If you check the whites of Zimbabwe, they speak Shona very well. Why? Because it's being taught in schools. Why can't we have one common language in Africa and share ideas through that language? Because if we cannot speak the same language, we'll never understand each other. And that division will perpetuate from one generation to the other. I want to go to Nigeria. I want to go to Ghana. I want to go to Egypt the same way I came to Kimberley, without anyone asking me where you're going, where are your papers. As long as I produce one common passport of Africa, it's a passage. Let me go. And anyone, free movements of persons and goods, anyone who brings the Chinese goods here and claim they are Malawian goods, there should be heavy fines, including imprisonment for such people. It must be purely Malawian goods which are produced in Malawi, which are going to have free movement in the whole of African continent. In that way, we're going to grow each other. There's no Malawian who's going to come here. There's no Zimbabwean who's going to come here. They will stay in their countries because there are opportunities there for their countries who are trading with each other without any restrictions. The Europeans, through the European Union, they are doing it. But they can't allow us to do it. I'm more insulted by Africans than anyone else when I say, let's have a borderless continent. Let's have free movement of persons and goods. South Africans have been made to believe that there is nothing outside South Africa. And we've got a lot of things to offer to the continent. But the way we're so restricted, we don't think that there is a world outside South Africa. And we even think there is Africa, then there is South Africa. So that's where our problem is. Once they open the borders, we're going to realize that, no, man, there's actually huge market out there. There are a lot of things we're doing here in this country which are not being done in many African countries. We can go and introduce them there and get ourselves huge opportunities. But we're believed to believe that there's nothing out there. All the good things are in South Africa. That's why these people are coming to South Africa. It's not true. They're coming to South Africa partly because there's violence where they come from. They're coming to South Africa partly because their economy have collapsed. We need to revive those economies.
No, thanks. We will go to the last because you only raised the African issue. And we also picked it up in your manifesto when you talk about growing the economy. You're not just talking about South Africa, but Africa.
Yes.
But can we jump to the issue of coalition politics?
Okay.
You mentioned earlier on that with the first round, 2014, you had very limited presence in the Eastern Cape, almost no presence in the Western Cape. But you end up becoming a rainmaker in the Eastern Cape, in Nelson Mandela Metro there. The Western Cape has got its own unique challenges. Patricia de Lille has ended the marriage with the DA, and there are lots of mixed signals that we are getting now. What's the likelihood of the EFF forming some form of coalition with any party in the Western Cape?
I think if there's a coalition to be formed in Western Cape, Patricia de Lille will be the premier. She's very clear. She doesn't get easily shaken by anyone, not by ANC, not by DA. And she...
Like Malema.
Yeah, yeah, and she doesn't get easily involved in scandals. They tried to scandalize her. They tried to destroy her. They couldn't find anything. So, you see, the problem with the DA is that it's extremely racist. You know, whites, it doesn't matter how much you help them, you'll remain a black person and inferior to them. We helped them in Nelson Mandela, in Tshwane, in Johannesburg, in Mohali City. Today they are running an advert that EFF has stolen VBS money without any proof. They've got posters that say, stop the EFF. Why would you stop people who are helping you to get power? You are biting a hand that is feeding you, and you want that hand to continue to feed you. Anyone who was justifiable to insult us anyhow they so wished is the ANC. We fought with their president. We removed them in Joburg, in Tshwane, in Nelson Mandela, in Mohali City. We removed them in a lot of municipalities in KZN, gave them to the IFP. We removed them in Limpopo, in Modimolle, and in Tabazimbi. But the ANC is not running an aggressive campaign against the EFF, insulting EFF, accusing EFF, producing posters to attack the EFF, even when we've removed them. Even when we continuously said we cannot be in a coalition with the corrupt. We keep on saying that. The ANC is still not. But these ones that we are helping, but because we're black and we're nothing, they can insult us and still expect us to come to work tomorrow. Because we're just domestic workers to them. It can't be. It can't be. Even those who say to us, no, give the vote to the DA, I think it's better they take their vote directly to a DA. Because we cannot continue, it's so painful to continue to support people who belittle you and reduce you to nothing and do not appreciate the little effort you are making. I'm not saying if the EFF stole the VBS money, the DA should not say it. But when people give you power somehow, you ought to have some decency of saying to them, guys, can you please clarify this thing? What is the story here? Because we can't allow a situation where you steal money of innocent people. They've never asked us any question about VBS. They just stood up in parliament and said we are VBS looters, ran radio adverts, said all manner of things. And then when the cameras are off, they come to us and say, no man, look, in Gauteng what's going to happen. And we're like, no, not this time around. We don't think we can even sit like this because the attitudes are hardened. The attitudes that exist between us and the DA now is what existed between us and the ANC in 2016. And I think that Patricia de Lille will be the breaking ground in the Western Cape, really, if anything happens. I don't know about Gauteng. If the ANC wants to govern Gauteng, if they don't win, they will have to make the EFF premier. The same goes to the DA. If anyone comes with a proposal of making us something, there's no way you can listen. When someone says you can be a king, you're like, what do I say? So we can listen to such things. But if they come wanting to be kings, not with us this time around. But June, we're taking Tshwane, and we're going to share MMC positions in Johannesburg and everywhere else where power is being shared that involves the EFF. We think we're ready now. We can't be learners forever. Our people are going to run out of patience very soon, because they will just see us giving people power and they will like, why are they not going in themselves? We're going in now after elections to govern Tshwane, to govern in Johannesburg, in Nelson Mandela as well. Yeah.
Yeah. In conclusion, one of your biggest critics, Basson of News 24,
yeah,
he has admittedly said that he sees you as a vanguard, not just of the poor people, not just of the black people, but of poor people also. And judging from the Western Cape, I think it's a very fertile area. We haven't seen you campaigning a lot in the Western Cape. Is there any reason for that?
Well, it's very difficult. The SG of the EFF is there full time. It's very difficult for me to be all over. I'm given 3 provinces: Limpopo, Northwest, Gauteng, and they said I must deliver those provinces. Floyd, Deputy President, is in Mpumalanga and Eastern Cape. He shares Eastern Cape with Limpopo. Here, it's our Deputy Secretary General, and our SG is Western Cape and Free State. So when I get an opportunity to get out of my provinces, I go and reinforce them. I went to Western Cape rally recently. It shocked all of us, including the EFF people, except the SG, who kept on saying to us, I'm going to show you flames when you come to Western Cape. So they are doing well. It's still not easy for the EFF, especially amongst the colored communities. It's very interesting because those who do the door-to-door in the Western Cape, they will tell you that the colored communities don't even waste time for us. When they just see the red beret, go that direction, don't even come here. And we said to them, don't get tired. You ought to consistently insist on talking to them. We'll find each other. And I hope that if they are not bringing their vote to the EFF, they won't take it to the ANC or the DA, because we need to humble these two. They are riding on high horses, and we need to bring them down and humble them. I think we're succeeding in doing that with the ANC. They are no longer too forward now. They are a bit understanding, and they are humble. We can still do more to make them to be grounded and never to disrespect the people of South Africa. I mean, you get a president who steals our resources for 9 years. You don't do anything about it. They must still be whipped for that, so that if you are to trust them in the future, they will not repeat a similar mistake. We have a current president now of the ANC. We are told he has stolen, he has taken 500,000 from Bosasa. He went to Parliament, he has denied it. Later on, they've now accepted, no, this was for this was for that. There's no clear, explanation. The public protector is investigating it. We thought the public protector was only investigating whether the president lied to Parliament or not. The latest investigation is money laundering. against the president by the public protector. And by the look of things, I don't think the president will survive that investigation once more. And once the public protector finds the president guilty, we want to see again what will the ANC do. Because remember, there was a guilty verdict with the previous president. The ANC defended the president against the constitutional institution. So we are monitoring that investigation closely. We will do the coalitions. We cannot want to be anti the democratic practices. The democracy now dictates that there should be coalition governments. Let's talk about them. Let's put on the table the EFF first non-negotiable principle. It doesn't matter who wants to work with the EFF. Is the expropriation of land without compensation. We need to amend the constitution. And we'll see if we will find one another with other political formations. Thank you very much.
Thanks a million for your time. We know you are pressed for time, and again, welcome.
Thank you.
Second time in very short.
Yeah. Northern Cape also is going. I think there won't be an outright winner by the look of things. That's why we're spending our time.
Thank you for watching our exclusive interview with the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, the one and only Julius Malema. We do invite you to stay tuned and wait for the next episode of Speaking Plainly with Thabo Makweya on Solomon Star.